Stand up, New York Giants fans. Welcome back, Giants fans. Today we're going to be talking about the 2018 Offensive Rookie of the Year. This award, of course, is going to come down to two players. This year's #1 overall pick out of Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield, and this year's #2 overall pick out of Penn State, Saquon Barkley. Both players had unbelievable seasons, and if you look back at the course of history, these guys could have won Rookie of the Year in almost any previous seasons, and they are both incredibly deserving. Baker Mayfield set a record, the most touchdown passes ever thrown in a season, and Saquon Barkley just tore the league up, and we're going to get into it right now. Perhaps the most ironic thing about both Barkley and Mayfield being up for Rookie of the Year is that both teams who drafted them were bashed for doing it. I mean, everybody said that Mayfield had no business going #1 in the draft last year. I was a huge Mayfield guy, but if you talk to all the draft experts, some people had him going second round as early as a month leading up into the draft. And on draft day, when it was rumored the Browns were going to be taking him #1 overall, people were laughing at the Browns. And then with Barkley at #2, half the Giants fan base, if not more, were tearing the Giants apart for not taking a quarterback there. The Giants were laughed at for taking Barkley. Well, nobody's laughing anymore. Both these players proved to be worthy of their draft slot in last year's draft. Both the Cleveland Browns and New York Giants only have one player in the history of their franchises to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. For the Browns, you got to go all the way back to 1957. But he was a damn good player. Jim Brown, who is regarded by most people as the best running back who ever lived. And for the Giants, it was as recent as 2014 when Barkley's teammate, Odell Beckham, received the award. Let's talk about this year's #1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield. Baker was named Offensive Rookie of the Week an astounding 7 times in only 13 starts. But then before I get into the numbers, let's talk about what he did for this team in the win column. The 2 previous years before Baker Mayfield was under center for the Cleveland Browns, they were 1-31. That's right, they had won 1 game in their previous 2 seasons combined, and he didn't start the first 2 games. And they were winless in both of those. He came in, of course, about halftime of their 3rd game against the New York Jets and let it come from behind victory, and he didn't look back after that. They went 7-7 this year when Baker Mayfield appeared in the game, and they were 6-7 with him as a starter. When he did not start football games, as I said earlier, they were combined 1-32-1. That is insane. Baker Mayfield, there's no doubt about it. And granted, I know they made some other offseason acquisitions, but he was by far the most important one. Baker Mayfield this year was unbelievable. And now we're going to get into the numbers. This guy threw for nearly 4,000 yards. He eclipsed 3,700 yards passing. He did it in only 13 starts, and he threw 27 touchdowns, which is a rookie record, and it's a rookie record that may never be broken. We don't know. He could have hit 30 had he started all 16. Baker Mayfield was ridiculous this year, and he is extremely deserving of this award. Another thing that I saw, he has the 3rd longest streak to start a career. He threw a touchdown in all 13 of his starts. Brad Johnson threw a touchdown in his first 15, and Kurt Warner threw a touchdown in his first 23. Warner, of course, was a much more experienced quarterback as he came from the Arena League, and Baker has a chance to break both of those marks next season. And now let's jump into the #2 overall pick, the standout from Penn State, the running back, Saquon Barkley from the New York Football Giants. And before I give you all these numbers and these records that this guy eclipsed, take into account the offensive line that this guy had to run behind. That is one thing, if you're arguing for Saquon Barkley, that is certainly in his favor. The Browns this year were the 3rd best offensive line in pass protection. The Giants had one of the 10 worst run-blocking offensive lines in the league per PFF. And the first half of the season, with Eric Flowers in the lineup, they were even worse. Eric Flowers was awful, and Saquon Barkley still found a way to do the things he did on a football field. It was truly a magical season, and as a Giants fan, he has given me tremendous hope going forward. Saquon Barkley's accomplishments on the football field in his rookie season were astounding. He had over 1,300 yards rushing, which ranked 2nd in the entire league, and he had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, which was the 3rd highest total of any rookie running back who's ever played the sport. He only trailed Edgerrin James and Eric Dickerson. He also set the record for most catches ever by a rookie running back. He had 91 catches, and I think he was 2nd all-time of any player in that mark. He tied Odell Beckham, who won the award as a wide receiver in 2014, his teammate, of course. Saquon Barkley rushed for over 100 yards in 7 games this season, and he had 15 combined touchdowns. He had an unbelievable year, and perhaps the most impressive stat is his explosive plays, and it's why people compare him to Barry Sanders. He had 16 carries this year for over 20 yards. The next closest in the league was 11, and he had 7 carries for over 40 yards. The next closest was 4. And he's one of only 3 running backs in the history of the sport to have 9 plays for 40 yards or more. The other 2 were Barry Sanders and Chris Johnson. Barkley was also one of only 6 running backs in the history of the NFL in his rookie year to have over 350 touches and not put the ball on the ground once. He didn't fumble the ball once, and for the amount of touches that this guy received, for a rookie, that is insane. And another thing that must be talked about with both these players is the pressures that they endured. Baker Mayfield, of course, as I said earlier, everybody said this guy shouldn't have been going number 1, and they had their doubts with his height, his attitude off the field. He had so much pressure, and he was going to Cleveland as the number 1 overall pick, and he performed the way he did. And the same could be said for Saquon Barkley. To go into New York, for people to say he's going to be this outrageous running back, all the pressures on him, and the fact that Sam Darnold went right after a player that many people thought should have been going number 1 overall, and the Giants passed on him for Saquon Barkley, not to mention Dave Gettleman going to the press saying that he's touched by the hand of God. For these 2 players to perform the way they did this year, it was truly a treat to watch. Both these players should win Rookie of the Year, and if it was up to me, they'd both win it. But I gotta pick one. Now, the strongest argument for Baker Mayfield is his position. It is extremely difficult to play quarterback in the NFL, and most players, it takes till their second year till they really progress. Mayfield did it in his first year, and he did it at an alarming level. So that is the strongest argument for Baker. The strongest argument for Barkley is the cast that he had. His offensive line in the first half was awful. The second half, they may have been average. And for him to perform the way he did, having arguably the second best rookie season ever by a running back, is just out of this world. And Saquon Barkley is going to be the best running back in this sport for a long time. Mark my words. And if they could ever fix the O-line, it is going to be scary. So with all that being said, as deserving as I think Baker Mayfield is, and there is certainly a case you can make, I got to go with Saquon Barkley. I think this guy is a once-in-a-generational talent, and with the cast he had, with the blocking that he had compared to Baker, as I said earlier, the Browns had one of the best offensive lines in the sport when protecting the quarterback. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Baker. Baker deserves this award just as much as Barkley does, but as I said earlier, I got to pick one. And I think Saquon Barkley deserves it. I think he had a ridiculous year. When you factor in that defenses knew what the Giants were going to do, that Eli couldn't throw the ball with because they couldn't pass protect. Just a ridiculous year by Saquon Barkley. And if it wasn't for Barkley, they might have won 1 game this year. So there you have it, guys. I'm going with my guy, Saquon Barkley. If you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Give me a thumbs up. Tell me your thoughts. Who should win Rookie of the Year and tell me why. As always, cheers.